Okay, good evening. I now call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Kucharski?
Here.
Commissioner Barraza?
Present.
Commissioner Singh?
Present.
Commissioner Cummings?
Present.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Apuda is absent. Vice Chair Dolan?
Here.
And Chair McCoy is absent.
Okay, we will now pledge our allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Cummings. I guess now we take the roll, sorry.
Commissioner Kucharski?
You do.
Here.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Are there any changes or addendums to the minutes from our May 15th, 2023 meeting?
There are no changes.
Seeing as that there are no changes, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from that last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. City Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Commissioner Kucharski?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Yes. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
We don't have a member.
I'm going to take that as a no. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We're having a meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I wanted to, at some point, I wanted to list when this matter is coming back to the commission. And I've noticed that at the bottom of the agenda, we typically list upcoming discussions, workshops, hearings. And I know that tomorrow when we meet, I'll bring that up, but I think it should be listed so we know what the timetable for implementation is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So noted. And we will now move to member reports and comments. Before we do that, actually, I'd like to just take a moment and ask TJ Miller to speak.
Thank you. TJ Miller with the City Manager's Office. And I just wanted to welcome Kelly Kucharski to the Commission. Kelly's the Co-Executive Director for Sierra Resource Conservation District. She has project management experience in private, government, and nonprofit sectors. She has served 6 years in community benefit organizations focused on economic development and charity, and she has a bachelor's in political science at the University of Michigan and has a project manager professional at UC Irvine. Welcome.
Welcome. So we'll now move on to those member reports and comments. Commissioner Cummings, do you have any reports or comments?
Not today, thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Nothing for me at this time, thanks.
Commissioner Kucharski?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Singh?
No comments, except that I'm looking forward to hearing the presentations today.
And Commissioner Barraza?
Not at this point.
I only have a comment that Memorial Day was beautiful and the weather was wonderful, so shouldn't keep that up. So we will now move on to city administration and parks staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Just a reminder that we start our budget presentations on Monday, all the city departments, and I'm not certain, I believe Parks goes on the Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Thank you. Does anyone from park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Chair Dolan, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. Yes, as TJ Miller mentioned, next Wednesday, June 7th, Parks will present their budget to the City Council. We will be, I believe, after fire, so I cannot tell you exactly what time that will begin, but it will be next Wednesday. In addition to that, just wanted to highlight Camp Fresno. We are approaching 1,000 confirmed campers for 2023 so far. There's still availability for those interested. You can come on to the parks website and register your children. And then also just wanted to highlight that splash pads were open last Friday and will be open throughout the remainder of the summer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 10 on the agenda, unscheduled communication and scheduled communication. And this is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission. You'll have up to 3 minutes. And if you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. So I just want to clarify, if your comments are about a specific item on the agenda and you want to speak on the record about that item, you should wait and speak when that comes up on the agenda as opposed to during these unscheduled communications. Having said that, I have cards.
So before we go into that, I wanted to ask, sorry.
No,
Mr.
please.
Dolan. So today we're going to receive a hearing on the allocations related to Measure P. Are we also going to be given the chance to make recommendations as well?
Yes, Commissioner Singh, today will be your opportunity to make recommendations for the FY24 budget.
So this will be our only opportunity to do so after hearing the presentation, pretty much since next Wednesday is the Parks budget hearing.
Correct. So your recommendations today will be communicated to City Council before our budget presentation next Wednesday.
Okay. So we'll start that public comment. All of these cards are labeled for the cultural arts plan, so we'll hold them for that agenda item. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we have Lisa Flores.
Lisa, you have 3 minutes to provide comment.
There's a little doohickey. I was waiting for it to show up.
There it is. We can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and having this meeting. At the beginning, I was a little concerned you may not have quorum today, but thank you for showing up. I appreciate all your work and all the service that everybody does. My big issue is getting and obtaining copies of the notices and actually the documents for public review. You know, the city just has an abysmal community outreach in regards to timeliness of releasing any sort of last minute document drop. For example, you know, I got this document drop, what was it, Friday at 4:51, which doesn't leave me a lot of time to call different offices with only 9 minutes left on a Friday before a 3-day weekend to get something in the mail to me under ADA, which wouldn't have shown up till probably tomorrow. So I would just ask that, you know, the city of Fresno, in their infinite wisdom, being a billion-dollar city, try to stop doing document drops and notices drops and updates and amendments to agendas at Friday at 4:51, because that is incredibly insulting to folks with vision issues, like my temporary vision issue, and other folks that actually may want to see the document but may have been out of town on a 3-day weekend. It's just so, yeah, it's seedy at best. Second thing is, where can I obtain a copy of the parks budget that's going to go to committee to the city council on Wednesday, before Wednesday? And can I get a hard copy mailed to me? Because everybody knows where I live. It's public record. So how can I get a copy of that? Because I really would like to know, since, you know, I'm the queen of the dog park over at Roding. I want to know what's going on with Roding. I want to see the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom?
We have Kyle Lopez Schmidt.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. Kyle Lopez Schmidt, the Executive Director of the South Tower Community Land Trust. Our organization was really formed around advocacy for what we call Broadway Park A, and this different documents for this commission. It's called South Tower Park. We had a meeting of our community out on the park Saturday, and talking through. A lot of folks are confused about the timeline for the project. I think the design phase has become nebulous, and I see there's a budget request in the future budget that's gone up in construction costs. So just hoping for some more transparency in process with our community that's advocated for that park. Hope that we could be a little more proactively kept into the loop about what's happening, and have a chance for our community to continue to be involved in shaping a park that fits the neighborhood and serves everybody. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
Okay. So we will now move on to hearings. Agenda item 13, a hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan, Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to provide public comment regarding this issue? You'll have up to 3 minutes for comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom for this?
We have Lisa Flores.
Excellent. Ms. Flores, you have 3 minutes.
Well, it is going to be real simple. I can't comment on this because I don't know what's in the document, because, you know, I have double cataracts, and I've had double cataracts now for the last 18 months, and I'm looking at surgery within the next month to clear that up so I could actually read computer screens. But, you know, it's accessibility to information. So I'm just kind of wondering, what's going on with Roding? Where's the dog park at in this whole process? Because we keep hearing we're going to move. I would like to see a timeline. Haven't seen the latest design. And I think that communication is the key here. And I'm really tired of coming to meetings and, you know, basically, I don't want to say harping, but complaining. And no one can pick up the phone and give me a call. Come on, guys. You all can do better. And, I'm very concerned about the output of public dollars in roading, and I want to make sure that, no public dollars goes to the monstrosity of taking out more parkland for Chaffee Zoo and their need to only park cars when it's crowded 14 days out of the year. We don't need to spend millions. That's what my comments are. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom?
There are no more.
Okay. We'll close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item? Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 13 on the agenda, ID 23-869, hearing presenting the Mayor's Parks After-School Recreation and Community Services Department budget for fiscal year 2024 with public comment. Would a member of the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Dari Balamsi. I'm the budget manager for the Parks Department, and I'm very happy to be here tonight to present to you the 24 budget for parks. One of my favorite slides is our vision statement. The Parks Department is committed to enhancing the quality of life for the community by providing safe, clean, accessible parks and community centers offering diverse programs and recreational activities and fostering meaningful partnerships.
Daria, can you speak into the mic? Sorry.
Sure. So the Parks Department staff really exemplify the spirit of this statement. You can see it in the community centers when you walk in and see the the community assistants and the supervisors, all the way up to our administrative or executive team. See it in the interactions with the kids, the seniors, the program participants. Our next slide shows you our organizational chart. So the main operating areas are going to be in the administration, operations, maintenance and capital improvements, sports and recreation programs, and our community services. And you can see on the org chart that there are sections that contribute to the operation of the department. (2023) accomplishments. We acquired the future senior center site, the old Bonds building on Blackstone and Ashland. We have a planned opening this week of the Paul Cap Capriglio Community Center, which is the Bulldog and Six Center. We completed the Keats Pocket Park north of Shaw and Fresno. We also launched the Link on Blackstone and McKinley, the Link Senior Center. We have over 25 capital improvement projects completed and 20 capital improvements in construction or pre-construction. We've hosted 14 community engagement events that consist of ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and community outreach events. Program improvements. We've resumed the hot meals for senior programs after the closure due to COVID and expanded programming across 9 sites. As Aaron mentioned earlier, our 2023 Camp Fresno season registration has exceeded expectations, over 900 so far. We've expanded the bicycle and pedestrian safety program to seniors. We've also renewed our partnership with Fresno Unified for swimming lessons at their pools. We've continued ongoing improvements to the registration process, both over the phone, online, and in person. And this includes a software upgrade of our reservation system. And because of your recommendations for the positions, we've improved staffing across the board to improve guest experience throughout our parks. We've improved our social media presence, local, state, and federal grants. We have the CalVIP Cohort 4, Interrupting Cycles of Violence, a burn discretionary grant. We're approved for the PG&E Cooling Center program, FM AAA Senior Hot Meals program, and also the Office of Traffic and Safety Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety program. This table represents the 2024 total budget by appropriation type, and also shows you the actuals from 2024 through the proposed budget of 2020. The actuals from 2021 to the proposed budget in 2024. Just a note that this table is a reflection of all funds that support the Parks Department. And it also, fiscal year 24 also contains carryover from the prior year. This next slide is a representation of our budgeted positions, full-time employees. In 2022, we made an operational transition to 4 areas and the regional parks area to optimize efficiencies and customer service. And you can see that between the adopted 2022 positions to where we are currently. In 2024, we have 12 new positions that are being requested. The 2024 changes are 14.5 because of the way that the positions are budgeted. They're moving positions previously approved in the prior year. We approved positions at 9 months to allow for a recruitment period. And the following year, they are at 100%. This next slide shows our most impactful items in the budget for 2024. Starting with Dolores Huerta Park, formerly Milburn and Dakota. South Peach Avenue Park. Construction is planned or anticipated to be awarded in 2024. The Radio Park Rehab Project. Construction is planned to be in 2024 as well. The Senior Activity Center. South Tower Park, Milburn Overlook, the design of, and then our anticipated cost for utilities. And as you can see, it's a large portion of our budget, and it's actually increasing as PG&E costs increase. That also includes water and solid waste costs as well.
Does that include the utilities necessary for the heating and cooling centers?
It is. This slide is a representation of our federal and state grants. We have large federal fundings of about $13.1 million, which includes ARPA, CDBG, and a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Some of the projects funded out of ARPA eligible projects and CDBG projects include South Peach, new basin parks, Cary Park bleachers, University Park play structure, Vinland play structure, Rotary East pickleball, the Citywide Senior Center, the elevator lift at Frank H. Ball, Fink White splash pad, and Maxi L Park, the HVAC there. Our state grants total $14.6 million and includes carryover of remaining grant funds from Prop 68, the CalVIP Cohort 3 and 4, pedestrian bicycle safety grants, as well as the Parks and Recreation grants from the California Department of Parks and Recreation. In 2024, our main objectives are to restore, refine, and reach out. We plan to restore service levels to pre-2008 levels and to provide safe and enriching activities at our parks and facilities. We plan to optimize oversight, customer service, safety, compliance, reporting, and monitoring of fiscal and programmatic operations. We plan to reach out to the community with rich engagement regarding improvement projects related to Measure P initiatives and access to programs and facilities. We want to make it easier for the public to get to know what Parks Department does and engage in our park activities. So these next few slides are more directly related to Measure P revenues. This table is a table to show that we meet the highest need neighborhoods ordinance requirements in 2024. In expenditure category 1, which is improving and maintaining existing parks, total 24 revenues is $22.1 million. The ordinance requirement is $11 million, and we meet that requirement at $11.4 million. In expenditure category 2, new parks and facilities, our 24 revenues are $10.3 million. The ordinance requires no less than 50% in highest needs neighborhoods. That's $5,063,000, and we meet that at $5,183,000. This next slide details the specific capital projects where we meet the highest need neighborhood ordinance. As you can see, the total is $18.9 million, and that includes carryover from prior years. Our next slide is expenditure category 2, new parks and facilities. A total funding of $20,400,000, meeting highest needs at $11,060,800. These next few slides represent the recommendations made by the Commission on October 17th and November 21st. And I'll go through them individually. These recommendations have been included in the fiscal year 2024 requests, and approval will be determined by the adopted budget. Recommendation number 1, free entrance for Fresno residents to the city parks on National Parks Day and on a second yet to be determined day. To provide free entry would be a reduction in our revenues of about $5,700, and we are recommending that we pilot this program in fiscal year 24. Recommendation number 2, allocating funds to develop programming and for improvements and developments to courts and facilities for soccer and football. Fiscal year 24 includes facility improvement projects at Peach and Radio Park, as well as other parks.
There we go. Can I ask a clarifying question? That waiving of fees, is that just for parking? What other gate fees are there that would be waived on National Park Day?
That would be for the gate entry fee, the parking fee, yes.
So the parking fee, okay, thank you.
Recommendation number 3, recommend $50,000 for planning grant for the youth program focused on civic education, highlighted in Southwest Fresno. Our 2024 budget includes minimal programming expansions. However, the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Community Engagements Violence Intervention Program Initiative, VIPI as it's called, will award funding to local agencies for the purpose of civic engagement activities and to engage youth for violence intervention. Recommendation number 4, recommend the Parks Department to incorporate funding to improve security at the Fresno Arts Museum. The Parks Department included requesting fencing improvements and should receive bids for construction. Recommendation number 5, $1 million to be set aside for organizations to apply for funds for projects that will fit within the scope of the measure. In 2024, our budget includes expenditure category 4, which is expected to be made available to local agencies to apply for grants. And category 4 is cultural arts in 2024. I think my clicker stopped working. Okay, recommendation number 6, recommends allocating $250,000 to repurpose the softball field at Jazzwatts Sing Colorado Park. Planning is underway for a cricket field at Jazzwatts Sing Colorado Park in collaboration community stakeholders. Recommendation number 7, recommends funding consideration for 2 additional soccer fields, one at a vacant city-owned field at Orangewood and Church, or at the 49-acre park site. The new South Peach Avenue Park is currently in design, and it's anticipated that it will contain soccer fields as part of the community engagement and requested by the community. Recommendation number 8, general fund allocation of $2.5 million for the Martin Luther King Park at the West Creek Village Development Project area. The $2.5 million requested for Phase 2 improvements has been recorded for consideration in future budget or grant applications. Recommendation number 9, funding for youth and young adult program that provides music, film, play, and dance training for Fresno residents. Cultural arts expenditure category 4 is anticipated to result in expanded access to cultural activities for youth. And then our current programming across community centers includes arts activities, including music, dance, and performance activities. Recommendation number 10, a minimum of $250,000 to be budgeted for volleyball courts, outreach, and design at Vinland Park and other parks as informed by community input. The 24 budget includes $321,000 for court resurfacing at Lafayette, Orchid, and Vinland, and additional locations to be identified. Recommendation number 11, recommends Parks Department budget for 2024 includes $250,000 for planning, design, and construction of the facility to support field hockey with the consultation of field hockey leaders. Our 24 budget includes funding for the South Peach Avenue Park, which is expected to include field hockey in the final design. Recommendation number 12, $600,000 for youth activity fee waiver voucher program. The youth fee waiver pilot program will continue into fiscal year 24 using carryover of $180,000.
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand that one. So does that mean the total available is $180,000 as opposed to the recommendation for $600,000?
The budget has $180,000 from carryover in 2024, correct?
So no additional funds beyond the $180,000?
No.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Please.
The amount that was allocated originally was $300,000. You're using carryover funds to go into 2024. I'd like to, down the road, schedule a discussion about what has been done with that project. We asked for $600,000 because we would like to see more opportunities for low-income residents to get reimbursed or get funding for participation in many of the sports activities for low-income families. And it sounds like your start was very slow for that project. And so I'd like to know what is the criteria, what are the projects that you're funding with that voucher program? We really don't know very much about it. So down the road, I just point out that it'll be very important to have a more discussion about that item.
And Commissioner Barraza, we can bring an item back outlining what programs, how much we spent, how many youth we reached, and so forth. Be happy to bring that back.
Thank you.
Our final recommendation is to recommend budgeting for increased availability of cooling and warming centers and increasing the level of outreach when the centers open. Our fiscal year 24 budget includes $400,000 of general funding allocated for warming and cooling centers. And that's the final slide and completes our presentation. We have Parks Department staff here and available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to know what is the cost of the senior center site and how much of that is Measure P? I understand you're reporting that you already have acquired the site. So how much money of Measure P has been used for that project?
Ed can give you the exact number on that piece of it, but just to date, we're still kind of refining those numbers. Once we kind of have the outreach efforts that were underway here in the next month or so, we'll be able to better define what that total cost will be once we hear from the community as to the needs and wants of that center. So, but Ed can give you the exact numbers of what's been spent so far.
And you are using Measure P money for that project?
There's a number of revenue sources going into that. Measure P is one of them.
Okay, thank you. Another project is the Pillabo soccer field irrigation improvements. I drive by that place and I see the grass dry, and I'm assuming that you are going to throw some seeds for the grass to get refurbished, but I don't see any water being irrigated. So anyway, what's the status of that project?
I'm gonna take that.
Commissioner Braza, there we go. Ed Chenevere, Parks Assistant Director. The Pillabos Turf Rehabilitation Project right now is in construction. It's in, the construction contract has been awarded and the contractor is procuring the necessary supplies for the actual irrigation infrastructure. But as part of that project, all of the turf will be fully rehabilitated, reseeded, and reestablished.
Okay, thank you. One other item, the one relating to recommendation number 5 made by this commission about the $1 million that be allocated for nonprofit organizations. You made a reference there in your comments that expenditure category 4 is expected to be made available to local agencies to apply for grants in fiscal year 2024. Now that pertains to the arts that we're going to be discussing further later on today. But just to advance the question that I'll be asking them, but I want to let you know now what the question is. How much money are you planning to make available in your fiscal 2024 from the category 4, which is 12% of all the Measure P funds?
Right, so our estimates, mind you, they're a 3-year kind of carryover, third year being 24. Our estimates show about $15 million, and all that would be made available.
Okay, and we'll know in a moment how soon that's going to happen, right?
Well, I think with the cultural arts plan, what we're hearing today with the comments, we're still getting through that plan. I don't know if we'll have specific dates yet as to when that the granting process will start. I know we still have to work through an agreement process and get the guidelines developed, so I don't think we'll have a definite date for you today, but we can definitely come back at a later date with more kind of structure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Of course.
Mr. Aguirre.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes, along those lines, which Commissioner Barraza brought up, I'm still not quite familiar with the process for sort of nonprofits who are interested in applying for Measure P funding that is not cultural arts related. That's a concern that I have, is that all the groups that are out there providing services to the community have an opportunity, a place to go to be able to apply for funding and can prove their nonprofit status if that's what's required. I am concerned that allocations are made independently of the community at times. There's a considerable amount of funding and the opportunity. I looked through, we had a list of the various guest speakers that we've had during the course of our meetings through mid-April. And in the commentary, we have individuals who are talking about their various sports clubs or their recommendations of their local park and what they would like to see. So I would like to know when we'll know about that process and if it will be separate from the cultural arts programming piece, the funding, the grant process.
So I think on our end, the operational piece, and I can speak to a park that has been mentioned multiple times from the community regarding cricket. We're looking at internally meeting with that organization who's expressed interest in refurbishing a park and working with them in the next coming weeks to see what that looks like to tackle that with the operating dollars, not necessarily capital dollars or something that would come here. It's something that we feel like we can handle internally and being able to address that need of that community.
So just for clarification, any of the sporting activities that takes place in sort of city parks, it will have to be run by parks. Say, for instance, there's a nonprofit that has been working with, a particular sport a couple of decades. They have their nonprofit status, and they're looking for support from Measure P to help them in that endeavor, to help the community members. Are they able to somehow put in a request funding from Measure P to help them to provide these services to the community?
And I think I'm expecting one of the speakers to actually come up tonight. We did get an email with that type of request asking for consideration for a project, which will come to you. And if so desired, you could make that recommendation, which would then go to City Council for final approval.
Okay, I think it's very important that the information is out there, that will be the process to be able to apply for funding in this manner. My worry is that, someone could be out there running their baseball program and they don't know that there is funding available. If they bring it up at a commission meeting or if they bring it up to their district representative, it seems to me that that's the most likely that they're going to get that recommendation for the budget. Thank you.
Just one question. I want to go back to the youth voucher, which the recommendation was 600,000 and the budget carries over 180,000. What is there some thinking on the Parks Department that program was not a success, or it's a drastic lowering of what the recommendation was?
No, I think in the short amount of time we've offered that program, I think it has been a success. We've seen early on the families who were in need of those vouchers and those waivers come out and reserve their spot for youth sports. So I know early on when we kind of kicked this off, it was right during kind of the T-ball and basketball. We do have football upcoming. We will have soccer upcoming. So we anticipate spending more of those funds. Some of that becomes a capacity issue with staffing levels. So the money was recommended, the money was allocated to provide the programs, but the resources weren't to expand that program. So had there been additional resources as far as potentially bodies, we could have offered larger programs citywide. So again, it was the dollars that came with it, which was great. but some of those resources were not a part of that.
In that budget recommendation for that program, is any of that money allocated toward personnel expenses? Or could it be?
The money that we've spent has been all towards the, so we offer them a welcoming bag with a tote bag, gym bag, water bottle. For instance, for baseball, as they compete through the season, they actually walk away with a baseball glove, a baseball. I believe we have a helmet for them as well. Basketball, the same thing. So everything that we've spent has gone towards the amenities, the jerseys, and then also the great thing about this too is we're doing this with our youth football, which will start this fall. Right. Part of that will be a voucher for families of the winning team and the second place team will each get vouchers for tickets to a Fresno State football game. They can take their families. So that'll be a piece of that as well. So all that money's going towards those type of amenities.
Right, and it sounds like a great program, which is why I'm sort of puzzled as to why even last year's budget had 300,000, this year has 180. And I think I heard you say, Aaron, if I understood you correctly, that is as much a capacity issue. So therefore my question is, rather than reduce the overall expenditures on the program, if the recommendation was 600,000, for example, is there some portion of dollars that could be allocated towards personnel expenses or others that would increase your capacity to deliver on that program?
Yeah, and I think we can look at that, but one thing I do want to caution you on is that money is not a consistent revenue source. That motion would have to be made every year to ensure that the bodies are able to be funded. Otherwise, then we've got to find a different revenue stream or potentially lay people off if that recommendation is not made on a continuous basis.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wanted to support the observations of Commissioner Cumming in regard to the $1 million, that it be not confused with that being art money. It's really more for all the areas that parks provide services, whether it's recreation, physical fitness, job training, other programs, not necessarily related to the arts. And since this is a recommendation that is going to the City Council, we want to make sure that that's accurately represented when it's presented to the Council. And therefore, I concur with her remembering the basis for that recommendation.
And Angela, City Attorney, would they have the opportunity to refine that motion to make it a little more clear, or would it need to be a new motion?
I would recommend just making a new motion clarifying what you want.
So Commissioner Braza, I think if there's something specific you want in there drafted, I think the way it's written here, the way it was captured, is relatively broad. But if there's something specific you want to kind of zone in on, I think you would make that recommendation at the direction of the City Attorney's Office to be a little more precise.
All right. Thank you.
And we will have the opportunity for those motions. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the reason why I requested that we have a review of the circumstances associated with that voucher program is to learn more about the logistics.
Agreed.
Why? Because I know it came at the later time and it didn't get implemented right away because of all the things they have going. However, that's a very good program.
Agreed.
That we should find ways of implementing it.
Agreed. Any other comments from the commission? We will now take public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to provide a comment regarding this item, of course, you'll have up to 3 minutes for comment. And again, this is regarding the Mayor's Parks After School Recreation Community Services Department budget.
It was not my intention to comment on this item. However, Commissioner Cummings and Commissioner Barraza, you are exactly right. You already entertained a motion as a commission to allocate $1 million for funding of activities out of the 88% of funds that you manage, not the 12%. So as the item is written, it assumes that that the 12% will fulfill that obligation, but as you clearly have pointed out, you were asking for sports and other activities that happen in public parks. And so you made that motion for that $1 million already. And if you want to remake that motion, perhaps you should, just for clarification, but it should be in the record already. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a request for comment from Pedro Navarro Cruz.
Hello, good evening, commissioners, park staff, everybody here present. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Pedro Navarro Cruz. I'm a District 3 resident, and I'm a community organizer with Communities for a New California Education Fund. We have a committee named the Fresno Parks Advocates United, which has worked for the last couple of years to identify park needs and recreation needs here in the city of Fresno. We did email you all what I'm holding here, basically, which is our fiscal year 2023-2024 City of Fresno budget priorities, and I will be reading them to you all. The first one, it was already briefly discussed already, $600,000 to expand the youth fee waiver voucher program. Last year when we introduced this idea, one of the major components that was left out was for essentially the city to also be a somewhat like a third party between families and youth serving organizations. So say if a family that plays in the soccer league wants to use these funds, they should be able to do so as well. And so I really appreciated the dialogue that you all just had. I understand that hiring and what certain staff is already doing can be crucial in making this happen. We are recommending $600,000, but really our recommendation is just to implement this idea where youth-serving organizations outside of the Parks Department, and it should include the Parks Department, can also have access to these funds as well. This has been done elsewhere, so why not do it here in Fresno too, right? The second recommendation that we have is $75,000 to conduct an annual representative sample survey. This would be a scientific method to control and to analyze really any trends happening with parks, recreation, and the arts within the city of Fresno. I mean, as you're investing in these different things, new trends will come up, some will go, and some probably have never gone away. So you want to be able to monitor that. What we found through the SurveyMonkey way of measuring needs is that it can be easily manipulated. It can create flawed results, which is essentially I see as a way of lying, right? And so a representative sample survey is a more honest way to conduct this type of measuring of parks needs, and just a way to include the community that maybe doesn't have the means to be here at these meetings, right? So $75,000 for that. Also, I know I've heard here before that a participatory budgeting process is not something that this commission can directly support, though you all are trying to support something similar in different ways. However, we do encourage some kind of recommendation to the city council for there to be a citywide process, not just for the parks, but for everything city related in a participatory budgeting process. That is one of the recommendations from the Commission on Police Reform, number 36, that has not been honored yet. And so this is one way to honor that, but also to improve civic engagement within this body and for the whole city. So we do recommend the participatory budgeting. The Participatory Budgeting Project, which is an organization that directly helps governments and organizations implement these type of ideas, they recommend $1 million per 100,000 residents. Also, we do encourage you all, this is not necessarily a fiscal ask, but we do encourage you all to formalize a partnership with the U.S. Soccer Foundation and their Safe Places to Play initiative to create and resurface multi-sport courts. They're doing an excellent job turning low-use volleyball courts, basketball courts, new parks, et cetera, into these multi-use facilities that can include futsal, that can include volleyball, it could include basketball, even pickleball. And so this is, they actually do fundraising to do this, so a lot of these projects can potentially be done through private dollars, though they can also be complemented through Measure P dollars. And so we encourage formalizing that partnership. I have the contacts for these folks in the East Coast, and so they would be more than happy to join you all at a meeting in the future. Sorry, do I have more time? I have a couple more things to share.
It's 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you all. You all should have received this via emails. If you want to take a good look at it, there was like 2, 3 more that we had, but thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Next up on the budget is one Sarah Parks. Sarah Parks.
Hi, everybody. I'll be very cautious about not preaching to the choir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this tonight. I just wanted to begin by reminding everyone that a primary function of this commission is to provide oversight of how Measure P funds are being implemented and how this measure is being rolled out. And as I reviewed this budget presentation and having spent a little bit of time reviewing the actual budget document, you are not receiving, a full picture of the plans and the budget for Measure P dollars for fiscal year 24. It doesn't appear that you're being asked to recommend this budget to the City Council in the way that it's agendized, but I would ask you to maybe ask questions about how are the trails funds being budgeted? What's planned for Beautify Fresno? How about the Park Rangers program? Do you know what's going on with that? There's a lot of information that's not included here, and so I'm just hopeful that you will do your duty to provide that citizens oversight and ask those questions. I really appreciate the comments about the $1 million recommendation. I thought it was pretty clear when that recommendation was made. We're hearing, over and over capacity issues. Understand that a way that our community can help the city address those capacity issues is by partnering with community organizations who are doing this work, every single day and get that $1 million rolling out for various programs. So thank you for asking those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My next card is labeled high need, and I don't know if that is regarding the budget presentation or if that is something else. I think it's a Jocelyn Barrow. Okay. Is there any comment on Zoom?
Yes, we have Lisa Flores.
Once again, good evening, and everybody knows I'm very opinionated when it comes to the beloved park system. One of the things I'm very interested in is knowing how much is Beautified Fresno going to take from this budget versus actual parks? Beautify Fresno. Because I really don't want to see Beautify Fresno really get much of anything when we have such a dismal park system in which we need to have more green space and improve the air quality in Fresno. And also, too, there was a discussion very briefly about the heating and cooling centers. Can we get that fleshed out a little tonight of, how much money are they looking at? How many weeks did they do last year? How many weeks are they anticipating this summer? And when will the summer funding come in, since, the budget's occurring, concludes at the end of next month. So I'm really kind of interested in, saving people's lives with the cooling and the heating center. So can we have a discussion about that? And that's about it. And also, of course, where's roading? I need to know the numbers on roading. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Yes, we have Kyle Lopez-Schmidt.
Thank you. First, wanted to just echo some of the things that Pedro said. Really amazing work that they've been doing. The sample survey idea is really important to get really representative sample and a consistent measure of opinion in a scientific method. So really highly echo that, as well as the participatory budgeting processes. In addition, just my experience of advocating for Broadway Park or South Tower Park, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen around the city really welcoming in community organizations in partnership and building that culture and really having intentional relationships in that way. We, as community organizations, not only have the opportunity of doing programming, but we have actual development capacity. If there's difficulty for the Parks Department to deliver these parks on time and utilize the funding that we're bringing as a community through Measure P, there's community organizations that have development capacity to lead different parks, and that was what we've been building the South Tower Community Land Trust around. So really emphasize looking at how we deliver parks to our community creatively and in collaboration, and just want to really emphasize that and putting actual dollars towards it so that we're doing that in an equitable way. Thank you.
Next we have Brandy.
Thank you. I definitely want to enlist and support the things that were brought up by Pedro, Kyle, Lisa, regarding different things. Regarding cooling and warming centers, I saw the 400,000. With one of the things that would be helpful, depending on who's doing this, is having people who want to. We were most successful when there was people in the parks who really who were very committed and wanted to do that, but because of limitations as employees on how many hours they could do, they ran out of hours. And I would love to be able to see the budget be able to support our workers being able to do the hours that allow us to have the greatest success with the warming and cooling centers, ones that have been committed and developed relationships, because as one of them said, consistency makes a huge difference. So I want to make a request for that, for the budget to include funding for the employees to be able to, those who are in there to be able to have the hours needed to be able to have a consistent ones that the funding for them. But also I want to continue with some requests for CNC, that the city of Fresno prioritize investing and building an inclusive multi-use court that can accommodate football, CVS, soccer, basketball, and volleyball at Quigley, Lyons, and Lafayette parks. And to make all new playgrounds accessible and accommodated for all children with disabilities. This is huge. We need to make sure that all of our kids can be able to enjoy our playgrounds as we are investing in improving them. And also that for $6,000 for new goalposts and nets at the hockey rink at Cary Park, including goals for futsal. And I just want to reiterate the need to have a participatory budgeting engagement process, having our community, more than those who are at these meetings, be able to have a say in how the money is used would be absolutely vital, and for our community to do, for our city to do, to ensure that we get the representation that we need and we get the voice of our community, and that we get it invested in a way that serves our community best, as well as continue to fund the youth fee waiver voucher. As well, I echo Lisa's concerns regarding the arts, and ask that there can do that all the recommendations that the community that the community would be heard in these needs. Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
Okay. So does any member of the commission have any budget recommendation motions that they would like to have considered? Now is the time to present them. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll make a
Cotton.
motion. I want to make sure that I would like to make a motion to set aside $1 million for organizations separate from cultural arts to apply for funds for projects that fit within the scope of the measure, and that there be specific criteria and guidelines set about who can apply for those funds and the maximum amount for which they can apply.
Second.
We have a motion from Cummings, a second from Barraza. Any comment on this motion before we vote? City Clerk, will you take a roll?
Commissioner Kucharski?
Yay?
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
I feel like I'm voting on this for the second time. Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Other motions? Commissioner Singh?
Yeah, so I would like the help of my fellow commissioners to word this, please, if possible. But I do agree, it's time we get a representative and scientific survey conducted about the state of our parks, what our community's needs are. So I'd like to recommend that $75,000 be used to conduct a survey of, I'm kind of blanking.
Representative sample survey?
Yeah, representative sample survey of our parks and our community's needs in regards to parks.
I will second that. Just as a means of comment, I want to say there's a big difference between a well-designed survey and a questionnaire. And I think right now the current program errs towards a questionnaire format, which doesn't give us the data or the deep dive into the information that we need. So.
And that's independent from the city?
Yes, independent from the city, please.
Is 75,000 the right number for that? Is that, where did that number come from?
I don't know if it's the right number. I think it's probably a start. Like, Director, would you like to?
Would you suggest that we word it without a budget figure on, but rather a directive?
If it's if that's an, you know, I don't know how much a
No,
survey of this
I mean, it's a
nature
good point,
costs.
right.
I don't think we should leave it open-ended either. I mean, we're just making recommendations. Can we just recommend that the city do a survey of that type?
That was going to be my question, how'd the number come up? We could do possibly, I think we did it last year, up to, not to exceed amount of whatever that number may be. So I don't know what that number might be. Is that 100,000, 150? I'm not quite sure what goes into that. But we could definitely look at something not to exceed and figure out what that dollar amount looks like.
I think that's a sensible way to look at it.
I don't want to say not to exceed either, just because it might exceed, right? The cost of a well-representative survey, we don't know that because we haven't really done it. So I'd say let's leave it at 75,000, but that number can change. Or is subject to change, if needed.
Mr. Chairman, I have a hard time hearing sometimes, and I really could not hear clearly. What is the area to be targeted, and what's the purpose of the survey?
I mean, this has been a topic of discussion before too. I'd say area, like the audience, target audience, I guess, is just residents of the city of Fresno. And the topics are getting an idea of what the actual needs are. I think it's trying to accomplish what the Survey Monkey couldn't, because we saw like there was certain groups of people whose voice really got heard through the Survey Monkey, right? Whether that's because they were able to share it far and wide or because they had more access to complete the survey. I think that this survey will allow for everyone to make sure that that they are being counted, it's not going to be a numbers game. I believe with a representative survey, like you don't really, it doesn't matter, you know, whether or not you've got 100 people saying we want this, you know, this thing at our parks. It's more so like you're looking at things from a more scientific perspective, using scientific method to see what should go at our parks or what should come to our parks.
And how does that impact previous surveys? We've done many, many surveys all over the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the problems that we have, right, is that we conduct these surveys, but they don't really give us an idea of what's truly needed. So hopefully
There's no control, for example, about how many times a person can answer a survey. There's no control over where the area of the city is that that person comes from, et cetera, as opposed to a statistically significant design that would bring a number of people who are representative across the city into a controlled survey situation.
Would this commission have an opportunity to review a draft, whatever that is, survey or the tools, the instruments that are going to be used? Now, some might think that we're trying to influence the outcome. So how do you go about that?
Well, that's actually an interesting question, and it might bear on the cost. Are we really asking for an RFP process or something like that, where somebody, you know, where we are actually getting proposals and design survey overviews? Would that make more sense, actually? Well, no, I'm only asking because you were talking about the dollars, and I think it's one way around that.
Yeah, I don't know, what is the city currently doing, and how would this proposed survey be different? I mean, I understand that there were surveys done as a part of the original formation of this group, but prior to that, I thought that the original Measure P process was pretty robust. It's a couple years old now.
Mm-hmm.
But what is this? I think the suggestion from the gentleman out there was an annual survey as an update. Is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner Singh?
I'm not suggesting annual, I'm just suggesting one be conducted. If y'all want to do annual, that's a discussion to be had too.
I think we'd have to bring that
My
up.
concern is definitely with the number, because you're looking at hiring an outside company or organization to do an independent survey. So 75,000 is not going to do it,
And if I might,
my opinion.
if I might jump in too, without a defined scope, I don't really know what type of, we'll say bids we're going to get. We would go out to an RFP process, anything over 50,000. So without that defined scope, what are we looking, what are we trying to achieve? We really would have a kind of an open-ended RFP, and I don't know who we would really attract. I think in something like this, so specialized, we want to make sure we're trying to gather whatever data that you all seek, and make sure that that's clearly defined in an RFP that goes out to a nationwide search to get the best and most qualified folks in here. So yeah, I think that would need to be developed so we could then have a kind of a starting budget. I anticipate this is going to be over 50 grand. But again, just looking at some of our outreach efforts, what those have run us in comparison, I don't know if 75,000 is enough, to be honest with you, to get you maybe the data and the outreach you're looking for. I think with our efforts for some of our other surveys, we've exceeded 75,000 quite easily. So again, I think once we kind of define that scope, we can kind of work on a number, but just my thoughts.
Well, that brings up a bit of a frustration, which is we don't really have time to do that because we got this workshop this evening and we have to make our recommendations right on top of it. So we can't really flesh out something even when we see the value of it like this.
Right, and that was kind of my point. Maybe we do something up to a certain dollar amount, and I know Commissioner Singh wasn't too fond of that. But that at least gives you the leeway to then maybe develop a subcommittee to work out the questions or the data. But at least at that point, you'd have your dollar amount set as your starting point to kind of go from there.
That would help guide the scope.
What do you all suggest? Is 200,000, is that an agreeable number for
I think
your
that's
thoughts?
I think that's fair, given we don't know the complexity of this, and it might get pretty good.
Okay. So,
And as a not-to-exceed number, we're protected. If it's
Good.
less than.
could we proceed with the motion that, that we start the process to conduct a representative scientific survey with, I guess, a budget of upwards of
Not to exceed 200,000?
not to exceed 200,000. And I'm hoping that this can actually be brought back later where maybe there's a subcommittee formed or to create that kind of guideline or that vision of what we're looking for through the survey, right?
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
So what would be the role of the commission in the selection process and the final format of the survey?
I believe we would review, I mean, I'm guessing, right? Same role we always have. I think that we would review the RFP and make recommendations. Help in reviewing the RFP, we would develop the scope beforehand. City Clerk, can we take a vote?
Commissioner Kucharski?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
I'm a no on this one.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'm just looking around for other motions. If there are no others, I have one, actually. I move that the youth voucher program be restored to the recommended budget of $600,000.
I'll second it.
Can we get a vote?
Commissioner Kucharski?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes, but I wanted to point out that that has never changed. The recommendation was still 600,000, but you reaffirm.
We shall reaffirm our recommendation.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Any other recommendations or motions?
May I ask a question?
You may.
About the trails piece of the measure? When will we receive reporting, or is it on here? And because I don't see anything on trails.
We are, Dari's looking at the numbers right now on the 24 request. I apologize, Public Works is not here. That's our oversight. But we can get you numbers on the trail.
And is the parkway separate from the trails, or trails and parkway? Combined. So we'd love to have that number.
Sure. So Category 5 appropriations, they're budgeted at $7,537,800. That's an increase of $904,900. Landscape operating appropriations in the DPW budget, so the Department of Public Works budget, are at $1,208,200. They have $6,329,600 for capital projects. Those are also administered by the Department of Public Works. The projects include $2,446,000 for the Southwest Fresno Green Trails and Cycle, $2,536,000 for the San Joaquin River Parkway, and $800,000 for major street beautification. In FY24, the additional funding is being used to add or replace the following personnel and equipment. A dedicated trail crew is being added to provide a higher level of service to our current citywide trail maintenance operation and future trails scheduled to be accepted. The crew consists of 1 Parks Maintenance Worker 2, 1 Parks Maintenance Lead Worker, 2 laborers, and a landscape maintenance superintendent, which will be responsible for the routine landscape maintenance of the estimated 3.9 million square feet of trails. Significant equipment, of course, is requested with those new positions to outfit those for service. And in addition, 1.208 is 1,208,200 is also allocated in the Department of Public Utilities budget for Beautify Fresno.
Ooh, I've definitely got a question there. So we've had lots of issues with trees. So for Department of Public Works, Utilities, is there another crew for investment that's different from the year before in respect to addressing the needs of the community, in respect to taking out the dead and the fallen trees that are street trees, community trees, so that they don't pose risk and so that we can enhance the community canopy? Is there a greater investment this year or something notable?
Right, so we, on the line item budget, typically we contract out the tree trimming service. So it wouldn't be a dedicated crew so much as a dollar amount that would be allocated for contracting out tree trimming service. We do have tree trimming. We very rapidly expended the $400,000 that we had in last year's budget dedicated in the Parks Department budget to go through over a dozen parks to really bring them up to speed with regard to tree trimming. We have continued that program in FY24 as well. So we'll, in our base budget request for parks, we have a request to re-up that funding and continue to get that up to speed so that we can get these on a more regular cycle. But with regard to the the Public Works trail trimming tree budget, I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me today, but we can bring it back to you.
And that also, we're talking about street trees and what you would consider community trees, which is a major issue with residents. My concern is the overall vision for the urban tree canopy. And again, there's risk involved. It's related to irrigation investments. It's related to the health of the trees for future. So a concern is when we just contract it out, is that we're not completely aware of how our neighborhoods are connected and what they need. I would like to make a motion that the city of Fresno hire for an urban forester position to oversee these functions of the urban forest canopy.
I will second that. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner
Kucharski.
Can I jump in real quick? I know Public Works is currently going through a survey to develop the urban forest plan. That may be part of that, but just wanted to throw that out there.
But we're not sure. So we would like to go ahead and make a motion, make a recommendation.
Just wanted to let you know in case you didn't know. I knew you
Contingent
knew.
upon Public Works not having that duplicated.
Commissioner Kucharski,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza, absent. Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
He just stepped out. I feel like I have to ask this as a follow-up question due to public comment. Is there a budget line in the parks budget for Beautify Fresno?
Apologies. Yes, there is $1,208,000 in the budget for the Department of Public Utilities for Beautify Fresno. There was last year as well. I'm sorry, I just had that information up. I could tell you the increase in a moment if you like.
Well, I'm curious. Is that out of Parks General Funds as opposed to Measure P dollars?
That's Measure P, Category 5.
It is.
So in today's hearing, why wasn't that information also included?
As I mentioned, that was an oversight on my part, not having Public Works here. We were going with just, sorry, tunnel vision with budget, just looking at parks, so that was my oversight.
Any further motions or comments?
So given that next week is the parks budget hearing, do we want to, and this is a question, open question for the commissioners, my fellow commissioners, do we want to have a special meeting before that, possibly on Monday? Just because I know we're missing quite a bit of information from today's hearing, and we did get new information as well. And I also want to open it up for the public as well to provide any like last minute recommendations or I guess, yeah, input that the public may have before the parks budget hearing on Wednesday.
I'd be open to that. I don't know if that's motion or how we go about it.
I'm open to it.
Can we schedule a special meeting for next Monday?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I will not be in town.
So Commissioner Dolan, I reached out to Director Mosier to see if he can join us through Zoom. If you want to give me a minute or two.
Oh, sure. Just to be clear, though, I'm not sure that Public Works is the sole issue in wanting to have a special meeting. I think it's more time to review and then come up with recommendations and comments that are more informed, but by all means.
And then just next week, as we do kick off budget meetings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we may need to find a different room, so just throwing that out there.
Yeah, fair enough. It would sound like Director of Public Works Mosier is not available to Zoom in with us, which is fine. But I think the statement still stands, and I think it's a good one. I think what we may have to do, commissioners, is find a day that works for everybody. It sounds like some folks will struggle with Monday, but the idea is good, so let's do that.
If I may, I think part of the point is that it is a struggle as a volunteer layperson to understand the areas in which there's overlap between Public Works and Parks and which parts of those are funded from Measure P. That Beautify Fresno thing would have, could potentially be controversial, and I don't think anybody understood. I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's the gist of what everybody's getting at.
But I think even the rest of what we learned tonight about DPW and DPU is that it's considerable amount of funding, and we want to know what's going on with it. And I do recognize that a lot of that comes from the general fund, but I also I understand that it's, Measure P is an investment there, and we want to know about it, and we want the community to know about it. So I'm willing to figure out a time
Yeah.
when we can
As a
meet
month.
and to learn. It should have happened tonight.
City Attorney, would we be able to Zoom if that's more convenient for the commissioners?
No, sorry, no, unfortunately, you know what, let me get back to you. Can I
Sure.
look into the Brown Act with the changes in the law, and I'll give you an answer.
So can I suggest that we acknowledge that we want to have that special meeting, but rather than take up public time scheduling it, we'll just figure out a time. Good? Okay.
What's the date that you're shooting for?
Well, we were talking about Monday, but you can't do Monday. Our new commissioner can't do Monday, so I think if we could just find another day before Wednesday, I guess that would be Tuesday, or maybe later this week.
Okay. Wednesday would probably be good. If,
Okay. Yeah, Wednesday is the actual budget
okay.
presentation. So
be a little bit too late.
anyway, again, in the interest of the public's time, we'll figure that out after this meeting, I think. So in which case, we're going to move on to.
Sorry.
Sure, please.
I did have one recommendation to make. So I wanted to recommend that we allocate $400,000 to resurface the tennis courts at Lions, Quigley, and Lafayette Park for multi-use courts. So that would include the futsal that's been brought up to the commission many times, basketball and volleyball courts. So resurfacing courts at Lafayette, Lions, and Quigley Park.
I would second that motion.
We have a motion by Singh and a second by Barraza. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Kucharski,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Can I just ask if that's already accounted for in the budget, or?
So that was a resurface, correct?
A resurface to the tennis courts at Lions, Quigley, and Lafayette Park to allow for futsal, basketball, and volleyball use on them.
So I do want to note on Lafayette, we did look at that. That's not just going to be a resurface job. That's more intense with some of the erosion we've had, and that's probably more of a reconstruct versus a kind of a resurfacing like we've done at our other centers. We can get back to you on that, but that is something we looked at. It's a bigger lift than just resurfacing, just years of just the surface deteriorating, water getting underneath and breaking out chunks of the surface.
How much does that add to the cost?
We don't have a cost estimate for that piece of it yet. We were looking at resurfacing for this year's projects. That was one that was on our list, and after meeting with the vendor, they recommended we look at a complete reconstruction, which would require redesign in the whole 9 yards. There are the other ones on there. Lions and Quigley.
Sorry, oh, I'm still on. Okay. You could hear me think. The balance in 2024, in the 2024 budget, we did continue the court resurfacing program that we started in 23, allocating $152,000 of new Measure P funding for non-highest needs parks. All of those parks would be in the non-high needs category, and $55,000 for high needs parks. The Lafayette is currently partially funded, like Director Aguirre indicated. We have received, information that the costs are likely going to far exceed. We were pretty much looking at like $60,000 for 2 courts, which is what we had been seeing, but Lafayette's going to be substantially more. So, one option could be to use the $152,000 that's allocated for non-high needs parks to focus on Lafayette, or keep that going on our, if additional new money came in for Lafayette, then we could use that funding to just advance the resurfacing program to the next parks.
Thank you, that answers my question. So in essence, the motion is to increase that allocation, and I support it. Sorry. I do, so that's a yes.
Vice Chair Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Any other budget recommendations or motions? If not, we'll close this agenda item and move on to agenda item 13C, ID 23870, a hearing to receive public comment on the Cultural Arts Plan Public Review Draft. I have cards if others want to comment on this. Oh, sorry.
Just want to introduce the
Yes.
public comment period, if that's okay.
Yes.
We're good to go. The cultural arts plan, draft cultural arts plan was released for a 20-day public comment period that started on May 15th and is open through June 5th. We did want to ensure that there were multiple ways for the public to submit comments, and this hearing serves as one of those opportunities. All comments made at this hearing will be recorded by staff and included in the record for the cultural arts plan.
Great. Thank you so much. So with that preamble, would any member of the public like to provide a comment regarding this item? You'll have up to 3 minutes. I have cards, so we will start with Lilia G. Chavez.
Members of the Commission, I'm Lilia Gonzalez Chavez, Executive Director of the Fresno Arts Council, and this cultural arts plan needs serious revision. You know, by the recommendations attached to the plan and accompanying emails by Sarah Parks and me, that we tried to have revisions made before this document was released for public review, but we were ignored. The recommendations are confusing and not aligned with the community interest included in the narrative. I suggest that the subcommittee of the Commission and the Fresno Arts Council be closely involved with the revision process and work directly with the consultants and staff. I also suggest that you reassign the subcommittee for the arts of the Commission, because right now it's just you and me, Scott. The plan overall demonstrates a lack of understanding of what we already have. It is not informed. It is not aspirational and shows little or no opportunity for development of new programs or strengthening of existing programs in the arts. When reading the report, it seemed like a boilerplate plan had been used because it lacks local content. In some cases, it offends our local community, suggesting art programs and services we already have, or it celebrates programs that no longer exist. It ignores the fact that many of our arts programs, institutions, and services that do exist have done so by sheer will. And thanks to a community-led movement, we now will have a resource to support our arts. Much of this could be easily corrected with an active dialogue with the consultants by people that know our arts community. We have a subcommittee of this commission that includes the Arts Council. It was put in place to do the required work, but up to now, we have not been enlisted to participate in a meaningful and helpful way. I urge this commission to direct staff to activate our arts subcommittee so that we can do the work we were assigned to do. We have such an amazing opportunity with Measure P funds, and this planning process will help us get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Amy Kitchener.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Amy Kitchener, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, a statewide cultural organization based here in Fresno. And I've been a very active member of the arts community here since 1993 when I came here to Fresno to take a job in the arts. I just also served on the Measure P Steering Committee, and my organization also provided financial support to the campaign. Thank you to the city and the commission for the progress on the draft so far. I would like to raise some areas that need further clarification and changes and also carry significant policy implications. The intent of Measure P in all its wide-ranging domains for parks and arts was defined to provide funding to supplement, not supplant, existing city budgets and infrastructure. There are numerous references and recommendations in the draft Cultural Arts Plan that infer the potential use of Measure P funds, including expanding funding to education, health, public safety, and built infrastructure, among others. The Cultural Arts Plan needs to be clear about the purpose of the 12% arts and culture funds that is not to supplant the city's budget for caring for its existing infrastructure and go to the nonprofits working with arts and cultural activities. On number 2, recommendation 2.3, there is the recommendation to develop the expanded access to arts and culture grant program guidelines. It talks about a strategy that calls for developing a tiered grant system for core operating and project support grants. What is the basis for a tier? This is undefined and should be taken out of the plan. We should not assume that budget size of the applicant organization is the appropriate designation for tiers, with larger organizations getting larger percents of their budgets. We need a strategy that will ensure that access to arts and culture programs is racially and culturally equitable to ensure relevance and access to all the taxpayers of the city of Fresno. And finally, the roles of the City Parks Department, Parks Recreation and Arts Commission, and Fresno Arts Council needs to be clarified. We have the opportunity to collaborate and segment important policy implementation roles for each of these entities, yet the Cultural Arts Plan does not adequately address this, and it also ignores the recent City Council resolution designating the implementation of the arts and cultural grant making to the Fresno Arts Council for Measure P. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Michelle Tracy.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to address you tonight. I'm Michelle Ellis Tracy, Executive Director and Chief Curator of the Fresno Art Museum. I'm in my 9th year stewarding FAM, which is 75 years old in 2024. Fresno's only art museum is owned by the City of Fresno, which helps with facilities maintenance and repairs. We receive no cash support. Thank you, by the way, for your support of our physical plant and including the museum in the 2024 budget for security improvements. It's gravely needed. The museum and several of its donors were instrumental in formulating Measure P's cultural arts component, and they helped fund the grassroots initiative with tens of thousands of dollars. Before the measure was put on the ballot, all of us met and rallied and lobbied for the passage of this initiative, spending countless hours, weekdays and weekends, out and about in this city. 4 years later, the arts and culture community of Fresno stands before you to ask that a revision of the extant draft cultural arts plan be acknowledged as necessary and approved that the Fresno Arts Council be the entity to oversee the grant guidelines and the funding process. As we all know, the Measure P ordinance, which was passed by a majority of voters in 2018, calls for the creation of a cultural arts plan, and until this is approved by City Council, no monies can be allocated. To date, the 12% for cultural arts has amassed over $30 million, which is desperately needed to maintain the cultural arts fabric of this city. Speaking for my colleagues and the artists who live here, this funding is critical to our retaining and remaining vital and surviving it all. The Measure P ordinance states that the Parks and Recreation and Arts Commission creates a cultural arts plan for Fresno in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council. It mentions no role for the Parks Department in this process. The commissioners and FAC need to work with the East Coast consultants on a revised cultural arts plan before the City Council votes to approve it in August. The current draft is unacceptable for too many reasons, including grave misinformation and alarmingly recommending the Parks Department establish a new division to manage the 12%, not the Fresno Arts Council. The cap needs to be revised with FAC at the helm in advance of the July meetings. FAC needs to see the revisions provided by the public with the June 5th deadline. At the August City Council meeting, the council should be approving the revised cap as presented by the Fresno Arts Council and recommended by the commissioners. Shoot, am I done? Oh, sad.
So sorry.
Anyway, that's what I mean to say, and I don't mean to be antagonistic, but I mean to be adamant. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Julia Copeland.
Hello, I'm Julia Copeland. I am a Fresno Arts Council board member and a retired arts administrator. And as a retired arts administrator, I was very excited to learn about Measure P and to be part of that effort. And one hope I have is that this city's arts organizations might finally be able to breathe for a moment, might actually be able to look forward to some guaranteed annual funding instead of being dependent on the winds of fate and the kindness of strangers to keep doors open and lights on. Nonprofits operate on behalf of their communities. These organizations translate funding into action, working on the assumption that the public good is real and tangible and is at least partly defined by the services nonprofits provide. So far, although Measure P funds have been collected since July of 2021, no funds have gone to any local arts efforts. This is disappointing, as Measure P had seemed like a huge and wonderful step in the right direction toward a new arts-rich future for this city, and really toward making Fresno stand out among American cities because of its commitment to the arts, which would be a point of pride for the entire region. Please, let's make sure this happy future becomes a reality. And please also, let's join the Fresno Arts Council in asking that the following priorities be observed when revising the Cultural Arts Plan. 1, remove the recommendation for an arts division under parks as a goal of the plan. 2, clearly state what recommendations will be supported with the 12% for the arts. 3, differentiate between Measure P's percentage for the arts and other Measure P funding. And 4, follow additional suggestions the Arts Council has offered as ways of making the plan clearer to all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next up, we have Stephen Wilson.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nice to see you all again. My name is Stephen Wilson. I'm the President and CEO of the Fresno Philharmonic. I certainly want to second and amplify the comments of my colleagues here tonight. I think the fundamental takeaway this evening is that the Cultural Arts Plan in its current form has several fundamental flaws. The whole goals and recommendations section is very poorly organized and fails to clearly state the objectives and priorities for the 12% arts grant program under Measure P, as well as for the Category 1 and Category 3 spending buckets. The recommendation to create a city arts division is poorly conceived and is strongly opposed by the arts community. The research and public input into the plan is not balanced by a deep knowledge of what the local arts community is doing right now. The brief conversations held but with some members of the arts community were not supplemented by a detailed survey of what arts and culture programming is currently being offered. As many of you know, the Monroe Review last week published an open letter from many arts organizations calling on the City Council to intervene in the cultural arts plan to get things back on track. I don't want to rehash that argument here tonight. The thing I want to stress is that after months of work, we are definitely not in a good place right now. The plan needs substantial rewriting and time is wasting. Measure P was passed nearly 5 years ago, and so far none of the arts grant money has flowed out into the community. I certainly second the request of the Fresno Arts Council to get the subcommittee of this commission more involved in the revisions, and I want to thank you very much for your time.
Next up is Laura Ward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laura Ward, and I'm the Vice President of the Fresno Arts Council. I've served on its board since 2018, and for the past 5 years, I've also served as the City of Fresno designee to the organization representing District 1. I helped draft the arts component of Measure P and have concerns regarding the draft cultural arts plan that was released by the city on May 15th. It fails to reflect the spirit and intent of the citizens who drafted this measure by redirecting priorities toward municipal infrastructure and away from the creation and celebration of artistic expression, supporting organizations and artists, and the important and necessary work of expanding access to arts and culture throughout the city of Fresno. Of specific concern are Recommendation 2.1 to establish an arts division within the City Parks Department, and Recommendation 2.3 regarding city development of arts granting guidelines, which directly contradicts the resolution recently adopted by the City Council on May 25th, clarifying the role of the Fresno Arts Council in developing and implementing those guidelines. Recommendation 2.10 to incorporate climate resilient design in city-owned facilities is entirely misplaced. And Recommendation 5.6, which directs art grants to be available for the purchase of personal protective equipment, is also at odds with the spirit of the arts and cultures component of Measure P, which were intended to both keep the arts alive in our city and enable more residents to partake in arts and culture experiences. Recommendation 3.1, which discusses making funding available to arts organizations and artists for them to gain education about opportunities for capacity building, instead of actually offering financial support for said capacity building and administration, demonstrates the disconnect between the draft cultural arts plan and the very real financial needs of arts organizations and artists in the city of Fresno that are struggling to survive the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. First, it's duplicative of existing efforts. The Fresno Arts Council already offers comprehensive education and support to the arts community regarding grant opportunities and how to access funding. Second, it directs efforts towards more infrastructure and education, not toward impactful operational costs necessary for keeping the lights on and the doors open at our city's cultural and artistic beacons, and allowing new artists and organizations to be nurtured and thrive. The collective creativity of our community in the city of Fresno is not well served by this version of the cultural arts plan as drafted. It must be amended to better reflect the actual needs and priorities of the arts organization and artists, as well as the citizens who drafted this measure and voted it into law in the city of Fresno before it's presented to the city council for their adoption.
Thank you. Next up, Nefesha Yisrael.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nefesha Ruth Yisrael, and I'm just going to take a moment of your time. After reviewing the cultural arts plan, I want to speak on the intrinsic nature of the arts with the focus on the removal of the recommendation of an arts division under parks as a goal of the plan. We have an arts council, and it is vital that Fresno Arts Council be the administering organization of the 12% of Measure P funds, as it was originally written to strategize an equitable distribution of the funds. It should be clearly stated what recommendations will be supported with the 12% for the arts. And there should be a differentiation between Measure P's percentage for the arts and the Measure P funding. I speak tonight because there seems to be a lack of clarification, understanding, and value of the arts and culture, and how funds will be distributed to ensure they properly reach artists and cultural arts institutions. We artists, culture bearers, historians, humanitarians, and arts advocates literally dedicate our lives to the work of creative community development. This is what we live and breathe for. We are born with an inherent pull towards making the world better through creative expression. When we speak of funds coming to arts and cultural organizations, in a city such as Fresno, we are speaking about the health of our community, economic development, and the livelihood of entire people groups. We as Americans have a responsibility to work ethically for the rights and freedoms of all people. We have a responsibility to remember that we live in the land of the free, where creativity and ingenuity are respected, loved, and appreciated. We have a responsibility to uphold law and legislation. We have a responsibility to make sure that all are recognized, seen, and heard. We have a responsibility to make moral and ethical decisions for our sisters and brothers, for our neighbors and our communities. We have a responsibility to do that which is right, just, and good. And sadly, we live in a world where there will always be a fight for justice, and there will always be a fight for what is right. I quote the Harvard professor and art historian Sarah Elizabeth Lewis, "When I remind my fellow humans to think about the arts not as a respite for life, but as central to it. Art and culture go hand in hand. We know historical cultures because of the artists that documented these moments." I'm going to skip a little bit ahead because I'm running out of time. We have a decision in this moment to do what is right, to sit at the right side of history. To quote President John F. Kennedy, "If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his or her vision wherever it takes them. We must rise to the responsibility of making a thriving city for all that inhabit this beautiful place in the center of this paradise called California. The artists here in the Central Valley deserve the same opportunities as artists and culture bearers in the largest of our cities here in America. If we do not ensure that funding is properly distributed through those that have invested their lives, their entire lives, to the arts and culture of the city, we will be doing a great injustice for our city as a whole. Culture is the lifeblood of a vibrant society, and art and culture are vital, essential even, to what it means to be human. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't read this name. Nunez Morris with the Radio Bilingual. I'm sorry, I apologize for doing a bad job on that.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Hugo Morales, and I am the co-founder and director of Radio Bilingüe, the National Latino Public Radio Network, which is based here in Fresno. And among other things, we were founded because of the arts. We promote the traditional arts of Chicanos, Mexicanos, and the borderlands. Our record has been about 3 decades of putting together the largest mariachi popular music festival, and not just in Fresno, but the whole state, and also a Tejano festival as well, over a decade. And I'm here to also remind folks it was Radio Bilingüe who first broadcast the Hmong cultural music way back around 1990 and ran for about some 20 years, and also the Filipino community music, traditional music. In respect to the cultural arts plan, I want to raise some issues, and thank you for the opportunity. I just want to remind folks that the intent of Measure P in all its wide-ranging domains for parks and arts was defined to provide funding to supplement and not supplant existing city budgets and infrastructure. And I think each one of you, as you make a motion and move the work forward, you should consider that, because that is at the core of the measure. which Radio Bilingüe also raised money for it and did work to get that passed. I also want to concur with Ms. Kishner about the developing tier grant system. I think it could be unfair, and it's not proper to do that. It's not a good measure to go by. Also, on recommendation 3.1, I think there should be clarity about that the effort should go towards supporting capacity building. And also, we should be clear about how diversity would be promoted by the grant making. It's not clear how diversity, this community is diverse, and it should be clear about how those funds will be invested. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Fox.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Fox. I'm on the board of several arts organizations in Fresno and involved with some others in a less intense way. So I appreciate the ability of the commissioners to both sit and pay attention for a long period of time here. What occurred to me in sitting through the earlier part of this meeting was how little I know about parks and how little I know about recreation. And was thinking, well, you know, in terms of the arts, there is an organization, the Fresno Arts Council, that does have expertise in the arts, but it would be very inappropriate for the Arts Council to make recommendations about expenditures of funds for parks or for recreation. That wouldn't work well. And I think similarly, the hearing a wide spectrum of opinions from the arts community about their unease about the creation of an arts subdivision in the Parks and Recreation rather than working with the Fresno Arts Council, which has a established recommendation of funding and supporting many organizations, I think has created this sense of unease. So I would very much want to support the previous recommendations of coordination with the Fresno Arts Council. I think that would be very helpful for the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ariana Chavez.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Ariana Paz Chavez, and the last time I addressed you, I jumped at the opportunity to introduce myself as the new executive director of Arte Americas. I'm thrilled to be home and proud to have spent the first 10 years of my career preparing to lead one of the Central Valley's largest cultural arts centers by studying and working at some of our nation's largest arts institutions. Still, I'm only 2 months into the role, and this role comes with many challenges. I'm glad every day that this is not my first time working with artists. I'm learning as I go, and I'm leaning on a few strategies in my new role that I think might be useful in the development of this plan. Number one is that I'm determined not to reinvent the wheel. Arte has been around for 36 years, and I'm consistently looking for ways to leverage the lessons learned by arts professionals and community stakeholders here in the Valley. Second, I'm asking a lot of questions. I wonder why this plan recommends an arts division under parks when we have an arts council that is prepared to facilitate the process of the distribution of Measure P arts funding through a peer review process. I also wonder why anything but a peer review process that incorporates members of the arts community would be selected as an approach to this. Having served on many national peer review committees, I can attest to the valuable educational experience that this is for our arts professionals. I also wonder, why weren't all applicants for the CARES Act funds distributed by the Fresno Arts Council in 2021 included in the list of organizations surveyed? Third, I'm looking for systems that will help us all collaborate more effectively. This plan refers to many systems, but it does not actually outline any systems that will streamline information or promote access to information, such as events ongoing around the city. Finally, I'm choosing my words very, very carefully. And I noticed that there's some iteration of the word access used within this plan 47 times. And this process will inevitably be deemed inaccessible because of the folks who are not present within this conversation and who are not here in this room. I'd like to invite everyone here who is watching to submit your comments by June 5th because we still do have time. Access is not something that our perpetually under-resourced arts community takes lightly. One of my goals during my time as director of Arte Americas is to create more entry points to the arts, and I'm concerned that if these resources go toward discovery and identifying our needs, those of us ready to use Measure P funds to meet the needs of our various arts communities will not be able to act. Thank you. I look forward to working together.
Thank you. That is all of the public comment cards I have. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we have Kyle Lopez Schmidt.
Good evening, everybody. I am just in awe of the wonderful voices that have been in this room today, and really joyous that all these creative and passionate people are showing up to speak to the arts, and it really showcases our community. And that's really lacking from this plan. It's not an actionable plan or strategy. It's just kind of a list of recommendations and strategies that are so broad that they're not strategies. So really, recommend what the Arts Council representatives have mentioned around really coming back to the core of it, and revisiting a lot of these recommendations and dialing in how specifically it can address many of the arts and culture challenges that are in front of us. I have many friends that are art practitioners who cannot make that their primary occupation because there's not the economy in Fresno to support their art, or many of them are being pulled out of the area for other cities that can see the value of their work, and we really need to have a plan that addresses that. And then I want to speak specifically to my community, the LGBTQ plus community that's strongly rooted in the Tower District. There's only one mention of them in this, and it's in the community input part. I'm going to read this quote. When asked about the importance of arts and culture, approximately 14% of youth responses spoke about equitable representation and ensuring that everyone across all backgrounds, especially LGBTQ plus and indigenous populations, were properly acknowledged and supported through arts and culture. That's the only real mention of that in this plan. There's no strategy that really takes that strong opinion from youth and puts actions and puts funding behind it. So really recommend those things be incorporated and uplift the other voices that have spoken before me, and really amazing people that we have here today. Thank you.
Next, we have Brandy.
Hi, thank you so much. I want to speak as one of the artists that have been mentioned and to ask that you take to heart, and not only take to heart, but take action based on what was said by the Fresno Arts Council, by representatives of Arte Americas and so many others, Kyle, other people in there. I owe a lot of my career to where I'm at a lot of the progress where I'm at right now to the Fresno Arts Council. It was because of art hops before I even lived in Fresno that I got the connections, and it is a strong reason why I'm currently in the Fresno State grad program to further my artistic career. They are the financial support umbrella for our arts organization that I am working on murals to be able to help underserved communities through the arts organization I am part of. And I agree that it is a struggle being an artist. I know many who are in the arts community. I know that I see that the needs of my fellow artists being reflected in the statements that have been said so far this evening. I know that our own arts organization that is working on the mural has been working, struggling with and seeking finances. There is a lot of needs that have been addressed this evening that aren't specific, that behoove the Parks Commission and the city to sit down and listen and heed what is being said by the Fresno Arts Council, and also regarding having them be part of decision-making culture arts, because it's because of them that there are things such as art hop, other things going on in our community, that there are the grant opportunities and other things that have helped artists like me to be able to move forward. They have years, decades of experience working with the community. The ones who spoke and should be at the table. So I ask that you listen to the demands, the requests of those who have come before me, and ensure that this money that we can invest in our arts, in our artists, in our community is best serving as it is intended. Please listen to what is being said. Thank you very much. I want to thank very much those who have spoken this evening, and hope that the more people do comment in the cultural arts plan, and that the city listen and take this and act on these statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy.
Next, we have Lisa Flores.
Good evening. First, I want to say I don't have a dog in this plan as far as the arts community is. I'm a fabric artist. But I do private commissions. I don't even do anything in Fresno. First off, you guys need a mediator to get some resolution in this. And I will tell you, I have most of the month of June off, and I can mediate because, I do have government experience. I was a planner. I know artists. I live in the community, whatever. Take it for what it's worth. Second thing I want to make a point of is there apparently doesn't seem to be a lot of transparency. As I'm sitting here and listening, my first question goes, every single public comment should be documented, and it should be in some sort of a meeting report. So anybody from the community can come and look at every single comment, whether it's written, whether it's an email, or if it was even given to staff. Where can the community find that to make sure that what the community is saying is actually documented and it is worked into the plan, or is at least justified from the government agency, which is the Parks Department, of why they're not doing this? Now, the third point I want to make is having a complete new division or department to oversee Measure P. To me, that is power building, and with the projection of the city's budget long-term, that's going to be problematic as in regards to staffing, because the old adage is first hired, first fired. So all these new people that you're going to get, maybe bumped out in some sort of a layoff scheme later. So, yeah, you guys get it together, because this isn't embarrassing. We're the 5th largest city in the state, and you're not reflecting the community. So my big question, sitting here listening to everybody, is why? Is it a power grab for positions and people in government? What is it really about? Or is it to funnel money into special groups and organizations to make political people look good? What is it really about? Because obviously it is not about the arts and the arts community in Fresno, which is shameful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Trisha Basil.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you. We can hear
Oh,
you.
okay. Hi, yes, my name is Trisha Baeza, and I am alongside my sister, direct a program called Hula Hana Fresno. We are a Polynesian dance and music and art program. We've been lucky to be partnered with the city of Fresno for 23 years, where we're located at Mosqueda Community Center. And so we appreciate support for our program. However, I did want to mention, we did go to, both of us went to one of the community forums. I forget what Norseman, I forget what elementary school. And I've come to many of these meetings, and I try my best to, I think my sister's a constituent in area 2, I believe, and puts her 2 cents. But even with the summary that I saw, our program is not mentioned, and we are very self-sufficient as much as we can be with our meager $75 a student for a whole year's worth of class. And that's music, language. We also teach about Hawaiian history, Maori history, Tahitian history. We teach them also in each individual language, not to mention our music. Our instruments are very expensive. And a lot of our families that are anywhere from age 5 to 70, they cannot participate in anything that wasn't that is any more expensive. So for us to try and maintain the same type of program and ever grow and offer it more, or to be in the way we'd hope that we could be if we had more resources, and not passing that on to the participants or the parents to try to pay for that when we come to our costuming and our regalia and field trips and other things that we would like to do. So we've been around for a long time. Our group, our halau, is actually 40 years old. And like I said, specifically with the partnership at Mosqueda there for the last 23 years. And I just, I hope that practitioners like myself and my sister, where there are other dance and music programs that do Polynesian types of programming, but it's not at a community center, nor is it community-based, and nor is it not-for-profit. So we just want to make sure that programs like us that are very, very small in the city, that we actually don't get, a large fund from anyone. We are self-sufficient, but it makes it very hard in this economy for us to continue to do that. So we just want, anytime anybody wants any questions for us, or how we can support, or however we need to apply, or have programs like ours that are small but definitely want to still serve the community, I would be happy to meet with anybody or provide any information about our program, because it is very, very unique. Nothing like this is for this cost, and nowhere in this area the way that we are able to do it. So thank you for your time. Again, my name's Trisha, and I look forward to any input that I can give or feedback. Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
Okay. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Singh?
I wanted to ask if we could quickly just pull up the numbers. So far, how many survey responses has the cultural arts survey received?
During public comment?
No, just the online survey.
As of the 15th
Yeah.
of May?
Or no, as of now.
Right. We opened May 15th. Give us a minute. We can get you those numbers. It's still, so we have a number of, we have the online surveys. We also have the door-to-door outreach that's being done. So we have hard copy surveys that are coming back to us as well. So I don't know if those have all been formulated, but in addition to the hard copy, we have the online survey. So we might be able to get you the online survey numbers, but again, that's constantly changing. It won't be accurate because we don't have the hard copies completely tabulated yet.
But just to get an idea of how many online surveys we've completed thus far would be nice.
So the online surveys, I'm hearing we have 134 that we've received so far.
Thank you.
Oh, and Commissioner Singh, 500 physical surveys have been returned, so we're moving along. And again, that's through the 5th.
Commissioner Barraza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to say that this master plan draft document is filled with a lot of contradictions. City staff has done a wonderful job in outreach of the community, a lot of community meetings, a lot of surveys, a lot of interaction. They have been very busy doing that. So when I get the draft cultural master plan, I'm really shocked to see the long list of recommendations, many well thought out recommendations attached to the draft that were not incorporated, that were ignored. Probably the most professional and knowledgeable institution, if I call the Arts Council, made very good recommendations. And I wanted to thank the subcommittee, which was comprised of Zara Parks, Commissioner Vanks, Mr. Scott Miller, who started the process. And they interacted together with city staff, but then the work product did not translate in incorporating the substance of those recommendations into the draft document. That's really unfortunate, and in my opinion, that input has to be incorporated. Whatever you like, whatever you don't like, but instead of us having to go through each one of them, we should have an opportunity to see staff's reaction to those recommendations. There may be, you did an excellent job in the budget presentation where we made motions and you wrote on the right side, even though you had your own interpretation of what that meant. But it was good because you reacted to recommendations. I think that if something similar should be done about those recommendations that have been submitted, and many from some of the members of the subcommittee, and quite a few by Lilia Chavez from the Fresno Arts Council. And I was very impressed on the time that she spends reviewing that information. I mean, total commitment. And we should appreciate it and welcome those good thoughts, ideas. We may not agree with everything. I even did not agree with everything, but the majority were very good ideas. I wanted to also point out that some of the wording of the I wanted to kind of provide some examples of something that I didn't like there was a lot of good information on the entire report. But obviously, this happens when things are kind of rushed through. There were areas of things that I didn't really like. For example, well, for one thing, on page 8, there was a citation of what the Measure B fund it's all about, and instead of writing the commission in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council, it was written the city. The city and the commission, I believe they're two separate entities or or organizations. So I feel that that should be added on page 8. The other, there was one sentence that I just want to ask you that it be removed. On page 10, it says, census numbers do not fully represent Fresno's rich diversity. Latino population is 50% in the city of Fresno. That's a census piece of information. So that is reflective of what we have in our community. So that is a statement that, in my opinion, should be removed, reworded. The other statement on page 12, at the very top, it says, diverse artistic talents and cultural practices of the people who call Fresno home are too numerous to count. Well, either you count them or you don't, but when there are too many, well, that's a good thing. So how many are there? Is there something you cannot quantify? I just don't like those kinds of, I guess you call them figurative speech statements that really don't mean anything. That's my observation. The other thing I wanted to point out, that I expected this report, because it says in the ordinance, to prioritize outcomes and investments. And nothing of that happens because we should have a matrix that identifies the various funding sources. Everyone has spoken about the 12% that is specifically related to the allocation for the arts, that all of that has to go to nonprofit organizations. But there were a lot of references to other needs, which are very important: public safety, transportation. Well, those things, you need to identify what funding source are you planning to use, and help us as commissioners to know what is, in this particular case, because this came from staff and a consultant, I kind of feel that should be clarified. And I kind of expected to see more information about the existing cultural arts programs that we have. You mentioned things, but I also wanted to know, what are we improving? More specifics about the local scene that I wasn't able to ascertain from what I was reading. Also, are there new programs that are going to be funded? We need to start thinking about that. I know that for some reason, it's work probably to have to identify all that, but I feel that should be identified. I happen to support the resolution that was approved by the council that is directing staff to negotiate, and I think it points out 30 days to negotiate an agreement with the Arts Council. And I kind of think that I happen to believe that there's a role for city staff in this process. As much as I love a lot of the good things that are happening, a lot of the venues for the arts are going to be the parks. And obviously there will be also public facilities, other public areas. And there is already data already existing that the Parks Department has that should be utilized. So I realized that the role of the Arts Council is very important, and I really feel that they should take a lead role in the administrative part of things. But I think city staff also has to help, because there's so much that is associated with city departments, it's associated with resources of the city, other things that we have to work together. As much as you know, there was one statement, this is the last comment, Mr. Chairman, there was one statement that was written as the head of the recommendations that I kind of, it says, goal 1, stabilize, restore, and activate. And then the first desired outcome, it says, arts and cultural organizations and assets will be stabilized, restored, and activated to expand access to arts and culture. You know, I know a lot of nonprofit organizations that we need to help them enhance what they do, but they're already doing a damn good job. So this kind of comes across as if as if conditions are really, you know, the difference between a half empty or half full cup. We need to see that the process is half full, and we have wonderful organizations that have struggled. Life is not simple in the USA. It has been hard, but they have already prospered and advanced so much that we all should be proud. And I think of Arte Americas. It's a very special institution that has done a wonderful job, and I know a lot of the volunteers that go to that institution, but they have prospered, and they recently got a very sizable allocation. So they're much better than a lot of other organizations. So I just think that it's the image that comes across, and I really don't want to, I really respect staff. City staff does a wonderful job too, and I don't really think that, I don't sense that there's any intended effort to downgrade any important things. But this is an open process where we all are allowed to offer our comments, and I just have to give you my reaction as one of the commissioners. But I think that at some point we have to work together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kucharski, any comments?
This was a great introduction, so thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Miller?
I have nothing else right now, thanks.
Commissioner Cummings?
Is there an opportunity to make a motion for a second iteration of this document?
There is indeed. That's coming up right after the comments.
Okay. I'll wait then.
I have a brief comment, which is just to applaud the arts community here in Fresno who have not only come out in force tonight, as has been the case, but come out quite often and are obviously very passionate about not only this allocation of Measure P's cultural arts funds, but cultural arts here in the city and the region. So it's really admirable, and I appreciate your time and effort doing that. So having said that, now I will say, does any member of the commission have budget recommendation motions that they would like considered?
Actually, Vice Chair, may I
Yes.
speak?
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm and clarify and also reiterate your thanks. I also appreciate and thank everyone coming out. It's the information that we receive in the meetings and at all times, comments, whether it be social media or filling out, that helps us inform the processes. And I just wanted to make certain that you all are reminded of the process. So this is all part of the process, putting out the draft. So our city staff did not have we did not attach comments. We have not made any comments to the draft. The draft came from the consultant, and that was informed by the public. And Aaron has the information on that in terms of those comments, the numbers that showed up. So this is all, just wanted to let you know, this is part of the process. The next step, Aaron will go through the next steps in the process. This is not the draft this is not like the draft final plan this is just part of that process, following up on the public outreach. And then I also wanted to just reassure you that pursuant to the action taken last Thursday, we will be taking an agreement to, within 30 days, to council with the Fresno Arts Council.
Aaron?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Just wanted to kind of go through next steps. As we all know, public comment ends June 5th. Right now, as comments are coming in, those are going to the consultant for their comment, which you all will see. So June 6th, the last of the comments will go back to them. Our plan is to have all those comments that we receive, in addition to what's already been published, back to you all the week of June 19th in time for the June 26th meeting we have. At that point in time, you all will have the opportunity to make your comments, your recommendations on the report. Those will all get implemented, and then we will come back July 17th for the final rendition of that cultural arts plan based off the recommendations of the commission, the community, and then at that point, you all will make that recommendation, and then ultimately go to council July 20th for the final approval. So I just wanted to throw that out there so we're all aware of kind of the next steps.
Thanks very much.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to ask a question pertaining to the resolution that was approved and the fact there's an agreement going to the council. I'm assuming that that's going to be reflected in the new version or the new draft of the Cultural Arts Master Plan. Is that correct?
I don't know that the timing will allow for that. So you heard the timeline that Aaron described. So on June 19th, your comments will be made. The agreement with the Fresno Arts Council to administer the draft plan is separate from the plan itself. So the plan is informed by the community outreach, accepted and approved through your commission and the Fresno Arts Council. As the way, and Angela, you can pipe in if I have this wrong, but as the ordinance speaks to, it's both the Fresno Arts Council and the commission that approves the draft plan and then that, or the plan and proposes that to council. Correct?
So the commission will work in conjunction with the Fresno Arts Council, but the commission approves the plan that goes to the council.
The part that I was interested in is in the recommendation to create, and I don't know exactly what that means, the unit for the arts, or whatever you call that component, because that has to do with functions that are being performed in relation to the plan. So that's the reason why I was thinking whether you might be modifying that.
As a reminder, that is not our recommendation.
Oh, it was I thought it was coming from you, that the draft was coming from staff. So that was the consultant's recommendation?
Yes, the consultant prepared the draft.
Well, thank you for clarifying that.
Commissioner Cummings, I have to correct my previous statement. We are not asking for any motions on this item. I apologize. Any further comment?
So when the public comment period ends June 5th and June 6th forward to the 16th, at
19th.
what point, so the Fresno Arts Council, will they have a role in working with the consultant on the final draft?
They've had a role as a subcommittee member, as well as a couple of the commissioners here. I know Ms. Parks, but at the same time, I know our agreement with NCAP is ending, so on June 30th. So after that time, we will no longer have that consultant on board. So we will work through, as Ms. Miller said, work through that agreement process to see what that looks like. And I know we're working as quickly as we can to get something back within 30 days.
So when do we get to see the next revised draft?
So what you will see, the week of June 19th, you'll see the comments you've already seen, in addition to all the public comments that are coming in with responses from the consultant. At that point in time, those recommendations then will come back to PRAC on June 26th for your kind of recommendation as to how the plan would be developed and changed and added, deleted. And then once we have those back, July 17th, we come back to you all for the final recommendation to council on July 20th.
So there's no revision of this draft. There's just comment.
So your opportunity to revise it will be during that July 26th, when you have all the comments back from the community, as well as what we've heard today and what we continue to receive, and remove sections, add language based on comments that have been received from the community.
And sorry, and what, if any, is Fresno Art Council's role in that? Sorry?
And I think that's what we are defining with the agreement.
Okay.
So, I'm confused now. So there is an opportunity for staff to make modifications to the draft as it comes back to us, correct?
The current draft.
The current draft.
Yes.
So we'll see a new draft.
So what you're going to see is you have the draft in front of us now. What we're taking right now is all the public hearing, so all the comments. You will get that back in a comment matrix. There are questions, there's sections and questions, there's likes, dislikes, with a consultant's narrative attached to it. Then at that point in time, you all can have the ability to remove sections, add language to it based off the comments and your recommendation. So then at that point, we would come back in July with that new version, different than what you have in front of you today, I anticipate.
So what happens to the comments those 108 comments that you just attached to the draft? What happens to them? So you're going to be evaluating them and reviewing them and making changes to the plan as a result of those comments?
So right now, the comments, as they come in, our consultant will look at them and evaluate them, make a comment based on their expert opinion, and then you all will see that. There won't be changes to the plan until you all see those comments. So again, I anticipate quite a few comments we've received that you all will have the ability to go through and may say, hey, take this section out. We don't like this goal. We like this goal. Change this goal to this. That'll be your opportunity to make those recommendations, which will then get into the draft that you'll see back finalized in July.
And that will include the possibility of adding those comments to the draft.
That's correct.
I mean, that's very important.
Right.
Otherwise, it's useless to have community input that's not get incorporated into the draft.
Correct. And that's why we want you all to see all the comments that come in, and you all make the recommendation as to what gets into the plan, what gets taken out of the plan.
Okay.
We will then put that to you as the commission to make those recommendations. Those recommendations will then be implemented into the draft plan as it sits now, and then come back to you again in July for review of that final plan. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I'm just going to make a comment. I really like my decision-making, but I don't think that I'm the most expert person in the room to make the decision on what should go in the plan or not. So I just want to make that statement. It's difficult to not have a second iteration with the input from the subcommittee that we had through the commission in partnership with the Fresno Arts Commission or Council. It would have been nice to have that version put out for comment, for public comment, so that we wouldn't have to be doing all of that work on the 26th.
Does the administrative agreement include the guidelines that will be used for the grant application process?
It has not been drafted yet. So this went to council on Thursday. We were given a 30-day deadline. We're going to do our best to make that deadline. We're right in we start budget hearings on June 5th, but that has not yet been drafted.
So is that included in your negotiations with the Arts Council or not? You know what I'm talking about? The guidelines for the grant process. Because we're going to have a grant process where nonprofits will be able to apply for grants. And as you indicated, the Arts Council is going to be administering that program. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And so the question is, part of the elements that need to be completed includes the guidelines as to who's going to be doing that. Is the Arts Council involved in that process?
So we have not yet had those negotiations in terms of the agreement.
Okay.
So we're going to do our very best to expedite this as best we can, given the timeframes.
Thank you.
So we are also with the original timelines for the draft plan, we are delayed a bit. So we were anticipating taking the final last month, correct? Our original timeline was it, we would have gone to council on the 26th. So we were delayed, so that has impacted the timelines for everything.
Thank you.
Any further comment? Because if not, I have the great honor and privilege of saying this meeting is adjourned at 8:23 p.m.